All right, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Got a great show for you guys today. First set of guests are two folks who are doing independent media, so near and dear to our hearts. So they are Daniel Luepker and Cabello. They're from Chicago. They do Hard Lens Media. Welcome to the show, guys. How you doing?
Hey, good to see you. It's been a while.
It has. Yeah, that's right. I of course went to Chicago because Chicago won the TYT contest, the city contest that we did, and met a lot of the folks there. And you all have a really interesting story. So I want to take this one step at a time. I want to talk about your company a little bit. Then I want to go back and talk about your background and how you came to know TYT, et cetera. But first, one of you guys jump in. I guess, Daniel, you're the CEO, so why don't you tell us what Hard Lens Media is?
Well, Hard Lens Media was created actually a lot of the influences from Wolf-PAC and our experience there with the idea of bringing up the voices of individuals, groups, and organizations that media wouldn't talk to, didn't care about. And so someone had to speak for those people and talk for those stories. And that evolved, and we now have a radio show, we have a television show, and we have an upcoming radio show coming on our new network, WCGO. It's really been a wild ride this last year, but it's a real shame that actually what we've been doing has been so successful. But there's really nothing else in Chicago meeting this kind of demand, talking to people. And in a selfish way, it's terrific for us, but no one else was here to answer the call, so we decided we had to do it.
Yeah. That really does sound like TYT in a lot of ways. Nobody else was doing progressive talk. Nobody else was against the Iraq war, so we thought we'd step in and give it a shot. So I love that. So Kit, give us a sense of how your experience on Wolf-PAC helped inform this.
Well, when I first joined Wolf-PAC, I remember your conversation about getting money out of politics. It was, in fact, I joined Wolf-PAC in February 2014, and before I signed up, I remember you speaking to the audience saying, look, we have to get money out of politics, we have to get our democracy back, and if we don't get involved, then don't be that person who says that they wish they could have helped. And when I joined up in 2014, we had a very solid team together. It was so strong that we managed to get it passed in the Illinois State Senate, and then come by, I believe, nearing the end of, it was February 2013. And then by 2014, I almost messed up on that. So by nearing the time of December of 2014, we managed to get it passed in the Illinois State House. And this was the first successful win that Wolf-PAC had in a very long time. And it was enough so to where we were able to make a real impact in Illinois state politics. And a lot of people said that it could not be done because Illinois has a long, sad history of really nothing getting done.
Yeah, before I get back into how you guys are covering Chicago in terms of being independent media, Kid, I want to stay on that for a second. So you're a Marine, you were in Iraq. I'm curious, maybe this is a weird question or a weird way of approaching the issue, but how would you compare your military experience with the Wolf-PAC experience?
Well, those are two different things. I mean, you got to look at the Marine Corps. It is what it is. You're being trained to go overseas. You're serving in the military, and at the same time, you're really working with a unit and a team to get a mission and objective done. Granted, Wolf-PAC's mission and objective to get things done is a little bit different. It's to get money out of politics, but it's a little bit more, here's a cause to really invest into. Because the whole thing was the Iraq war, we all know what happened in the first place, and that was basically, weapons of mass destruction, but there were none to be found. Whereas with Wolf-PAC's mission objective, it was, hey, we got to get our democracy back. And if we don't do it, well, we're going to be run by oligarchs. And which one do you prefer, to live in an oligarchy, or do you want to somehow stop that oligarchy?
Yeah, no, I love that you guys got involved, and I love that you passed it. So great record of success already. Illinois is one of the 5 states that has called for a convention to get money out of politics. So Daniel, what are the 3 outlets that you guys are on now, and how did you get on them?
Well, we started as just a Facebook page, even before we got on those outlets, and that's Hardlands Media on Facebook, same on YouTube. But, we realized that it's all about growing and how many people you can reach, and that will in itself grow and evolve in its own way. So then about almost a year ago, we got onto Q4, QUE4.org, and they're a community organization and a radio channel. In a lot of ways, what we do on there, getting on there in the first place, wouldn't have worked if they weren't what they were too. They're also a community-driven organization. And then about 4 or 5 months ago, we got onto Can TV, which is actually just like what you had was public access TV. We've been on there for a while, and we sit down with guests on both shows. For Can TV, we sit down and we talk Kit Talks. I do the camera work for about 30 minutes and just talk about the issues. It's very issue driven. That's all our shows are issue driven. The radio show, we have 2 individuals that come on the radio show, and they vary, but usually it's politics related. It's almost always politics related. And again, it goes to bringing people on that are not heard anywhere else. The new show that's coming up is a much larger network. It'll actually triple our reach in terms of how many people we talk to in Chicago, and that's going to be very similar to how we operate the Q4 show, just with half as much time.
So, look, I love your can-do attitude. Maybe that's why you're on Can TV. Okay. No, but seriously, not only have you guys gotten these huge figures in Chicago and Illinois, like Daniel Biss, J.B. Pritzker, Chuy Garcia, et cetera, but you've gotten a lot of national figures, Jimmy Dore, Lee Camp, Jane Sanders, Nina Turner, Josh Fox, and the list goes on. Those are some pretty great gets. How'd you guys do that?
Well, it kind of goes back to the same thing. We just go where media doesn't exist, and usually there are interesting people there. And a lot of people we met at the People Summit last year, which was a lot of fun. But in a lot of ways, there's people go around. Very famous people go around the country, and there aren't news organizations covering it. And it just comes down to it.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing how little press, especially progressives, get, and that's part of why we started Rebel Headquarters, and that's part of why we're interviewing you guys, because we don't want to do just candidates. We want to get the whole progressive ecosystem to get larger and larger by getting everybody exposure. So now let's talk about how you do cover Chicago. So Kit, I know Chicago is a bit of an amazing city, especially when it comes to politics. But what's going on lately? What are the topics that you guys often come back to?
Oh, that's a great question, and it's something I hope that your audience gets to hear about as well. Because just because Chicago is a major metropolitan city or has the title of being a democratic city or quote unquote liberal city, that's not the case at all. In fact, the real truth is that all across Chicago, especially in a lot of low-income minority communities, there's gentrification that's taking place. And what this means in the long term is that people of color, working class families, people working 2 or 3 jobs are being displaced because of these large real estate developers that are moving in. And these large real estate developers have connections with people in Cook County, city government, state government to some extent, as well as the mayoral office. And as a result, you're seeing thousands of people getting displaced. You're seeing these new buildings being built, schools being shut down. And people are angry. They don't have a place to live. And a lot of people have been living in these communities like South Austin, Pilsen, Inglewood, for example. They've been living there for generations. And now they're being kicked out. And the city government, their aldermen, their elected officials are turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to their pleas and concerns. So when we go there, we talk to these groups, these individuals like Pilsen Alliance, groups in South Austin, 25th IPO, 12th IPO. And there's a lot of issues that aren't also being addressed as well, such as recently there's lead in our water. Chicago's drinking water isn't safe.
And about 70% of the places that have been tested actually came positive for lead. And we've known about this for a while. We were working with East Chicago when that was happening. And in a lot of ways, we kind of joke about it when we're not on air, but in many ways, Chicago is the most feudal city in the nation.
Right.
In that it's like 4 or 5 people that really control how everything works here, and it's very entrenched in a way that's very similar to Washington.
It's also important to note out that Chicago isn't just segregated, it's hyper-segregated. You got the north and south side, and usually the north side is labeled as the more affluent part of Chicago, south side is poor, low income. But even within the north side and south side, there are various different neighborhoods. And the way the entire city and Cook County is gerrymandered, really people don't have a voice unless you're connected. And by connected, you need to be connected with some of the ruling families and dynasties that have been in power in Illinois and Chicago for a very long time. And also, just adding on to the water issue, Chicago is obviously near Lake Michigan, but if you cross the border into the state of Indiana, you got these large steel mill factories that are pouring, regulated, mind you, regulated toxic waste into the water. And Daniel's a lead contractor, and he's also worked with some of these other dangerous chemicals in the past as well. And he could tell you what exactly is being dumped into the largest body of fresh water.
Well, part of the issue with it goes to what you say when they say regulated with quotations.
Yeah.
Regulated with quotations is, hey, you can't put that toxic material into the water. You got to add water to it first, then you can put it in the water. Then it's safe. And so you have right next to Chicago, where we get our water and other places get their water, you have the largest, the largest steel blast furnace in the Western Hemisphere.
Tar refinery factory.
The largest tar sands refinery in the U.S. You have jet fuel production, and that goes to East Calumet, which is a place we've covered in the past, where all these industries just surround people. And so West Calumet, the region, when we were doing our work there, had a area that was just built on top of a lead refinery, or the corpse of a lead refinery. So the area should have EPA standards. If it's 200 parts per million in the soil or less, it's considered fine, natural. If it's over 400 parts, it's considered, the EPA has to go in and replace all the soil. There were front yards kids were playing in that had 90,000 parts per million. And again, going back to Illinois, you have just areas of the city that are just contaminated with lead. And again, lead's something I would work with. It's an incredibly dangerous substance to have in your body, especially when you're young.
And just to add on to what Daniel said too, as I mentioned earlier, these large real estate developers are moving into these low-income communities. So these same low-income communities have a lot of lead in their water. And the great scam that these real estate developers do, this whole plan of gentrification, what they do is once they kick out all the people that shouldn't be in the neighborhood anymore, then they go in, they rebuild it. They put in new pipes, new everything, and then sell it to people who, I guess, the city wants to live here.
Yeah, one thing that goes into
it's
that
very insidious.
Is it's a very strategic way to replace inventory. Because a lot of the people we've talked to, I mean, for the most part, all you have to go out and ask people, and it's very public. It's just you have to be in a certain geographic area for it to be public. Is that, they've been asking for years, hey, can you fix our pipes? Hey, can you put a bank here? Hey, can you put a grocery store here? Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And the answer is always, well, no, we don't have the money for it. Then as soon as they're out, we're going to put all this stuff in that you were asking for a generation or so. Yeah. Now the new people are here.
And if we rewind the clock back just a little bit, there was an infamous City Hall debate in which our elected officials managed to have the money to build a $95 million police academy. And when Chancellor Rapper asked Mayor Emanuel, hey, how can we have money for this academy but not enough money for our public schools? Mayor Emanuel heroically walked out of the room.
Yeah, that sounds like Rahm Emanuel I know. All right, guys, I love how passionate you are about the issues and about Chicago. And, I wish TYT had the resources to set up outlets in all the different cities, but not yet. So in the meanwhile, I love that you picked up the flag and started running with it. And so just give everybody that doesn't necessarily live in Chicago a sense of how they can catch Hard Lens Media.
Okay, so the best way that we'd like everyone to go is we have a Facebook page. That's where we're most active on. We have a YouTube page that has a lot of the stuff on our Facebook page. We usually use it for more archive, but we're planning in the future to have an actual show there, kind of like how TYT does. And look at us also at hardlensmedia.com. And a big call out I want to give is if there are any people on TYT's network that are listening right now that are in Chicago, we are in dire need of journalists and people to help us cover this. So, I mean, it's just the two of us right now. We have two other people that are able to work a little bit every couple of weeks. And we're just at capacity. We need more people to help what we do. I wish the two of us could cover the entire city, but it's a lot of people.
And there's something else, too, I would like to add real quick. There was just a quick story just to show you just how much kind of an impact we are making on a lot of people here in Illinois. A while back in Oak Park, there was a vote to raise the minimum wage to $15. And there was a point to where it wouldn't get passed. And there were a lot of people there. And one of our colleagues who we've interviewed in the past was excited to see us, and she asked us, "Hey, where's the other media at? Where's NBC, CBS? Where are these guys at? Don't you talk to them? Don't you have their numbers? Can you call them over here?" And I said to her, "Look, we don't have their numbers. We don't really know them that well, but we are here." And she paused for a moment and said, "We reached out to them too, and they didn't respond back." And then she said, "I'm so glad you guys are here."
Yep.
Something has to be.
Yeah, standing a post. All right, Daniel Luepker, Kid Cabello, Hard Lens Media, everybody, hardlensmedia.com. Thank you so much for joining us and being passionate about these issues and covering your city. Love it.
Hey, we're happy to be here. We hope to work with TYT more in the future. Progressive media has to stay together. There isn't that much of us.
All right, I love it. Sounds good.